all 40% of kids, all of them struggle with chronic symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Well, we know it's deeper than that as pediatric and family chiropractors. We know that it's deeper than just, okay, I'm going to be afraid of a symptom.
Yeah.
I want to have the confidence. I want to have the momentum. I want to have the adaptability and the reserve to say, here's what I have going forward. So that way I'm not going to get feared into anything, later on. I know the choices I'm going to make. I'm in control of my own life. And how amazingly cool is that? Not just for healthcare, but for everything that they can accomplish.
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. The one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jakubowicz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. I'm Dr. Matt Hill, and today I am joined with one of my favorite human beings. Yay. And I get to introduce her too, because so often you probably do a solo episode and you don't introduce yourself. So this is Dr. Ellie Wright.
Hi, guys.
She is a mom to Goldie.
I am a mom.
She is Dr. Jonah's spouse, which is very important that we put these two first.
That's right.
Especially for Dr. Jonah. He's our editor on this podcast, so he needs to know that he's included in this. Yeah. But more of what we're going to talk about today is you're a prenatal, perinatal, pediatric, gosh, you name it, chiropractor. Yes. And you love studying this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I could not be more excited to sit down and have this conversation. More or less, I have a bunch of questions to ask you and really dive into here, but also for us to go back and forth on this really exciting and important topic of, do babies really struggle with chronic health issues? Yeah. And this is so important because, yes, you think of chronicity, and especially if you're a new chiropractor or a student, you're like, oh yeah, you think of someone who's 70 years old, hopefully not as old as me, right? Like someone who's like 70, right? You have to be that old to struggle with chronic health issues. But what do we know has happened more recently in practice? But there's more exhaustion, there's more tiredness, there's more worn outness, which is just chronicity in there. And so do we even see that as young as babies? And
spoiler alert, yes.
Yes. Is that the end of our podcast?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.
Yep, right. We'll go into more details here with it, because I really want Dr. Ellie to pour out a lot of the science into this. And we'll get into the story part too of what's the clinical application in practice for you. Real quick to intro this topic, I think it's super interesting. One of the stats that's thrown around quite a bit is this 40% stat, that 40% of children struggle with chronic health challenges. Mm-hmm. This came out a lot in, I think, a lot of the hearings that happened on Capitol Hill even a month or so ago about, having a new Health and Human Services director where, we've got to do something to change it if there's 40% of kids that struggle with chronic health conditions. Yeah. Now, the question is, how early do they struggle with these chronic health conditions? And then as chiropractors, what does the definition of that really look like? Because the statistics there, the 40%, is so much built on a medical model, right? It's a chronic health condition in their world is defined as a symptom. Right. So do they already have something, which we know as chiropractors is the end of it, not the beginning or the root cause, right? Because it's the nervous system, it's subluxation, it's that. And so we need to look back at, when does that chronic health challenge start? And why does it start to even get to that symptom standpoint? So you could say 40% of kids struggle with chronic health challenges, but really it's more than that.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot more than that.
For sure. And it's, I would love to just rewind the tape and go back to what was their pregnancy like? What was their preconception life like? And that's what we do so well as docs at PWC and as PX docs, is that we are always looking to the root cause and for the actual story. What was mom experiencing? Did she have fertility struggles? Was she induced? Did she have a C-section? What is that entire story leading up to this 40+% of chronically sick kids? And I would love to dive into the science first of it, because as chiropractors, we're nerdy. We love to nerd out. We love to learn the actual science, and then we love to be able to communicate it to the moms and dads in our office. But as PX docs, we always talk about gas versus brake, right? There's two sides of the nervous system. There's that sympathetic side, and that's the parasympathetic side is the brake pedal. So if I am a mom running from a bear, I hope that my gas pedal is turning on, right? Like God intelligently designed both sides. We do not want one or the other. We want them to work cohesively, just like your car, right? You hit the gas, then you stop, then you go, then you stop. So we don't just want to paint a picture of one side as the bad guy, one side is the good guy, but it has to have a nervous system that is regulated and that is functioning and balanced.
And that's perfect, because so often I think, and this isn't going to be like a dad's perspective on pregnancy, because that would be really bad, right? Like we have no idea what goes on, but it's like, well, let's just rest, just chill, just relax. That's not the real world.
Exactly.
Right? Like you were working full time when you were carrying Goldie, and you were, graduate, gosh, like just
graduation,
in startup
everything.
mode.
Yep.
So that's not really realistic to be like, oh, just let the sympathetics just have a week off and or 9 months off. Take 9 months off your sympathetics. You don't need those, and just meditate.
Yeah.
And everything will be good. That's not realistic.
Yeah, no. So it definitely has to be balanced. You have to be able, your brain has to be able to perceive stress and know what to do with it. Yes. So on the gas pedal side, that's our fight or flight side. That's the running from a saber-toothed tiger or whatever it is that you're running from. And what happens in our brain is that our brain perceives that as stress, as it should. And it goes from the hypothalamus to the pituitary to the adrenal glands to tell our body to produce adrenaline and cortisol. So if that's going nonstop, then you run out of gas. And that's what we see so much with the fertility world, is that moms and dads both are constantly stuck on that gas pedal, running from a saber-toothed tiger when they're sitting at home watching The Office. So we have to make sure that they are perceiving stress. We have to make sure that they are perceiving stress, or the opposite of rest, digest, regulate, reproduce. We have to make sure that they are able to balance between the two. So if they are just sitting at home on their brake pedal, just watching The Office, that's where it goes hypothalamus, pituitary to gonads, which is reproductive organs. That's the HPG axis. And what that is telling is the body that it is safe to create and sustain a baby. So with all of these moms and dads who are struggling with fertility, they're never in their brake pedal mode enough to be able to create progesterone, create estrogen, testosterone, spermatogenesis, all of those things that they need to create a healthy baby. We also see this with miscarriages, is that when the body is so focused on itself to stay alive and being in fight or flight, why would you be running from a saber-toothed tiger and stop to create a baby? Your body would never do that. It's intelligently designed not to do that. So we, as chiropractors, have to make sure and take responsibility for this part, and make sure that these moms and dads, that their nervous system is fully regulated and adaptable. Obviously, we can't choose the stressors, right? We can't choose if we do need that emergency C-section or whatever it may be, but we have to make sure that their nervous system is ready to adapt to that stress.
Yeah, and I love that you started with preconception. It goes way further back than parents think about. So we can, you obviously talk about it in your offices to your parents, but as chiropractors, we can really nerd out about this and really think about, that I guess the analogy, and when I first heard it, this kind of blew my mind, where like, if I had if my wife had a daughter, we have 4 boys, by the way. So that did not happen, nor is it going to, which is kind of sad, but we'll live with, Goldie's adopted,
you can adopt
right?
Goldie, exactly.
Adopt Goldie. But there's generations there, right?
Exactly.
With the egg that plays a massive role
100%.
that then epigenetically can hold on to stress. And we know that as chiropractors, right? That it's just not all what your genetics tell you. It's the epigenetic impact that then imprints on that.
Yep.
and that builds. And go ahead.
Well, eggs are turning over every 3 to 4 months. So we've been completely lied to as women to say that we are born with all our eggs and there's nothing we can do about them. And that our grandma had our eggs in her body as well. And it's like, yes, that may be true, but turnover happens every 3 to 4 months. So every time we're adjusting these moms, we are able to impact their eggs. Same with sperm. It turns over every 72 days. And so it's just like, yes, you're on a 24-hour cycle, but there's new spermatogenesis every 72 days. So we're able to impact these moms and dads for generations, which is so incredibly cool, is that we have the opportunity as chiropractors to literally change the world. And so I don't want to downplay that of like, if you are a chiropractor and you are looking to get out of back pain or to get out of all of those things that you don't necessarily, those are important, right? Soft wave, sure, whatever. But we want to get you in the lane that you're looking for. And if that's helping moms and dads have babies and also like pregnancy and kids and perfect storm, all of that, we want to get you in this. So quick plug for PX, right?
Yeah.
Like that's exactly where you will learn all of this, but it starts with chiropractic. It starts with these adjustments. Nobody can adjust like you can, right? No other person, no other profession is able to adjust. We are the chiropractors and we should be owning this because we specialize in the nervous system.
Yeah, nothing is funner than this type of practice. And
is that a word? Funner?
More
fun,
funny?
funner?
I thought so.
It. No,
edit
we should
it out
use it.
if
We
not,
should
right?
use it,
Nothing is funner.
It's not.
Than this practice style and coming alongside someone and that being the outcome. Right?
Exactly.
If you're in practice and you have that preconception story of a mom and a dad, and then seeing that baby, like those are the best. Those are families that stick with you forever. And continuing on this journey into the conception piece of it is, and that word epigenetics being so key of it. What are some of like the exposures or the time frames when we look at that developmental sequence that are so key? Because I know in the PX world, the perfect storm world, the Dr. Tony world, we focus so much on delivery and the delivery of it. But just like preconception, you kind of want to go back, and there's a lot of time that baby needs to cook. Yes. What's the critical windows there with that?
Oh, so many critical windows within pregnancy, but a lot of the times, like the first trimester is what we want to focus on mainly because, that's why we want moms in before they're pregnant, right? Because the neural tube is closing right in those first few weeks before you even know that you're pregnant. And so the nervous system is the first to start developing, and then it's not even fully developed until after birth. And so it's just crazy how important that is. But there are very critical windows within pregnancy that we have to hit in our adjusting too. Yeah.
And there's actually a study we'll link in the show notes for this. It's a paper that talks about the vagus nerve and the critical windows with it. And this was so valuable. And I saw it's a fairly recent study too, which is awesome, is it really looks at that neural tube and it says, okay, what parts of the autonomic nervous system are developing when? Yeah. And so it almost lays the timeline out for you in this study of, well, here's the structural things that are happening, but here's the neuro things that are happening. And what was so interesting is 6 to 8 weeks time, you're starting to see the sympathetics and parasympathetic nervous system start to develop. 6 to 8 weeks. That's like take a minute with that. That's before a lot of moms know they're pregnant. Yeah. Right? Like they haven't figured that out. And that's when those are already starting to lay the foundation for that side of the nervous system. And then that continuing on. That happens early. Yeah. So when we go back to the root cause of stress, of what causes chronicity, and you see that be a neuro involvement there, even before the systems, the autonomic systems of the body, the gut, the lungs, the hormones, all those things, there's a framework that's already developed. That's this parasympathetic and sympathetic response. The stress input is laid up top of these autonomic systems, and then the organs of them, the glands of them, it's all stacked together, but it all comes back to the body knows how to respond to stress, and it knows how to respond to relaxation. Or in a lot of cases now, but we see the opposite. It just doesn't.
I know, it's crazy. I actually have those. So 3 weeks, nervous system starts to develop. 4 weeks, all of the organs are starting to form. In 4 to 8 weeks, that's where like the heart starts to beat. Cranial nerves are starting to form. And that's where the neural tube focuses. And then like you're saying, the first parasympathetic stuff starts to come in at 6 weeks. And then sympathetic stuff, 10 weeks. And just all of those reflexes and things are starting to develop. It's crazy. But that first trimester is all about development. And then the second and third, all about growth. And so we really really do have to start seeing these moms earlier.
Absolutely. And if there's any type of, look back at the 3 T's, especially that emotional subluxation at that point, that is going to get the system to not know how to respond correctly. Do I need to throw more sympathetic response at it? It's also interesting to note here in this study, what it talks about is, a lot of times we say the vagus nerve is the key, right? It's very important. Well, the body's actually building these other neural networks for the parasympathetic nervous system. It's not all vagal controlled. Right. And that's what's so important of laying down this foundation, is because we don't fully understand the nervous system, right? No. How many times have you adjusted, like a T4, like BJ Palmer did this, right? Yeah. It just like, maybe it was a T4 and this guy can hear, right? Yeah. How many times have you done a thoracic adjustment and this baby sleeps for the whole night and they're doing so much better? And you're like, I didn't even touch their parasympathetics, but did you?
But did you? Exactly. No, that's so cool. And especially when adjusting pregnant women, like a lot of the times we've been trained to just look at sacrum or just look at atlas or whatever it may be. But it's like a lot of it lives within that TL junction, like we talked about, of the HPA and HPG axis. All of that ends up in the TL junction. And so we have to be able or be adjusting that area as well.
Absolutely. So we continue this timeline. And, you've got first trimester, massive for neurodevelopment. Then you've got a lot of growth and it kind of like like typical development, you kind of settle in for a little bit. And then comes this delivery piece of the puzzle. And, a lot of times it's very easy to look at the perfect storm, especially if you've studied this for a long time and think, okay, it's all about the dyskinesia aspect of it, right? You get to that patient's history, if you're following me, and you're like, did they use forceps? Did they use vacuum? Was it a C-section? Was it, what hand did the doctor use? All this stuff. Like we try to nerd out about this.
Was their leg up?
What was the subluxation pattern? I think I'm seeing their occiput a little high. What is it, right? That's so important. But I always like to go back again to not look at it so dyskinetic, but what was the nervous system doing when it was born? Naturally, we're supposed to have a sympathetic surge, right? Babies have a sympathetic surge. That's what God designed them for, to be able to cry, get out, get respiration, start to nurse. And then they fall into that awesome phase right after they're born of just parasympathetic chill and relax. Well, hopefully they do for, 3-4 weeks or so. But there's got to be this sympathetic surge. Even
on both mom and baby.
On both mom and baby. This is perfect. So talk through that.
So what's really cool about birth and connecting it to the nervous system is the basic, every mom will do this differently, but there's basic 3 parts to birth of you have to be in a parasympathetic mode in order to initiate labor. So if you are in your house, the dim lights, you feel safe, that's when labor is going to start. If a deer is in the wild and they are, tucked away, or your dog when it has puppies, they're tucked away and it's dark. But if something comes and is starting to attack that deer, labor stops and the deer will move. Same thing happens in moms, is that to initiate labor, they have to have that brake pedal mode. We see it a lot of the times of once they go to the hospital or wherever they may be, labor will stall. That's the gas pedal, but the gas pedal isn't being initiated at the right time. So the natural flow should be brake pedal, initiate labor. Then to get baby out, both mom and baby's gas pedal has to be activated. And so that's why it's so important to adjust these moms too, to have their nervous system regulated. But by adjusting mom, you're also able to access baby's gas pedal and brake pedal, their nervous system, so that they are able to get out of the canal. And so then after that happens, when mom and baby are safe and, everything went well and that's skin on skin, that golden hour, that is when the brake pedal initiates again. So they have to be able to flow through parasympathetic to sympathetic to back to parasympathetic. And it is just, God designed the nervous system so incredibly well, obviously, but we are able to help be the hands and feet of Jesus and adjust these women and these babies so that they're able to have an adaptable and regulated nervous system going into labor when maybe they do need the forceps or the C-section or all of that. Are they going to be able to adapt from that? Yeah, exactly. And I laughed a little bit when you were saying they have to be like at peace for that to activate that parasympathetics. We have 4 boys, and for our last, my wife Josh, she wanted to do everything right. Believe me, we got to this point. She's had every type of birth imaginable with our 4 boys. We are blessed to have that arc, I guess you could say.
But with Joshie, trying to do everything natural, and it's like 41 and a half weeks, I think, with Joshie.
Yeah.
And like, she wouldn't get like any contractions during the day. Well, newsflash, she's caring for 3 other kids and I'm working and things are crazy. So
her gas pedal is on.
Her gas pedal's on. But then at night, things would start to ramp up, right? Things would start to ramp up. And then you'd wake up again and boom, they just stall. So it was clearly that nervous system that needed to really relax. And sometimes you can't even tell the nervous system that. Like, I think I was like, you should relax, but that is a really bad thing to do. That does not work just from life lesson there.
Fun fact, Dr. Matt did have a free birth and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It's my favorite story.
Crystal had a free birth and it was amazing with our 4th Joshie, but it took us 4 pregnancies to get there to where we both had the certainty. And I think this is a key message for dads, not to go off too much off topic.
No, this is good.
But as a dad, I couldn't have been as supportive to Crystal at that free birth for her 4th had I not had her have to go through an emergency C-section, go through a full-on medicated epidural, go through a hospital birth that was unassisted and unmedicated. Like, to go through those 3 got us to the point where we're like, I feel very confident.
She's like, I'm going to catch this baby.
I feel very confident. And Crystal obviously felt a lot more confident than I did, but then I was able to support her, because the worst thing you can do is when, hey, is this okay? You're like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. You need to support each other through that.
Yes.
And we were able to do that, but it definitely was not just hey, we're going to decide to do this. Yeah. It was a journey that God led us to.
That's awesome.
So transitioning here from the science aspect of it, because, it really is the easy answer here. The Sunday school answer is subluxation, right? Subluxation early on obviously makes it chronic, right? We're preaching to the choir on the Family Practice podcast here for this, but we want to make this applicable to you in practice. What does this look like in story? Right? What does this really look like with the kids that you've seen? And so we have a couple different, call them case studies and kids and moms that we've really seen this in, that we want to talk about a little bit, because I think it's so interesting to see this developmental arc of when they really get stuck. And you'll start to hear this in your histories, in practice. And then that allows you to then go to the application part of, how do I help care for these kids? One of the things we often see with this arc is, if you have call it a mainstream medical family, or what you will, right? Someone they're doing their best. They just don't know. And they get introduced to chiropractic. I would vote that commonly happens around like 6 to 8 months time.
Yes. Yeah.
Because naturally that's when babies hit development the most. They're starting to use the motor system. They're having to eat solid foods. They're starting to get exposed to the immune system. All of these things are coming at them. And at that point, it's the perfect storm, right? Like, they're getting hit with everything. That mom hasn't gotten answers from her pediatrician. The things they're trying aren't working. And so they're like, okay, I need another choice, right? I need to find chiropractic. Obviously, we want to help change that, and we want to get them under care a lot sooner, because when they already hit that at 6 to 8 months, it's harder to unwind. There's more layers on it. So awesomely, this first girl we're going to talk about, Eva, they came and found us a lot sooner, which was
she came
awesome.
in at 9 weeks.
Yeah, 9 weeks.
We were just talking out there, going through story after story, and being able to talk about all of these babies who we've seen is just a miracle in itself, of that these moms and dads are finding us so early. But Eva found us at 9 weeks old. Her story is that her parents struggled with fertility. She was an IVF baby. Then her mom was preeclampsia, or had preeclampsia. She was born at 36 weeks. That manual assistance, she did have the epidural. She was 10 days in the NICU. And then we start to see the symptoms come out of poor latch. She was colicky. She had reflux. She has gone to every single well visit with her pediatrician, if you know what I'm trying to say. There was a lot of stressors at home. And so this baby has just gone through the perfect storm in just 9 weeks. So when we ask, can babies really have a chronic illness when she's only 9 weeks old? Well, if you look at it, she's been chronically sick her whole entire life, 100% of her life. So yes. And this was Eva's story.
Yeah. And I think for her, you look at that arc of the stress early on, sympathetics just get stuck on. And so that mom, bless her heart, she saw the symptoms happen so early, but the symptoms, remember for how we started this podcast, those are the last.
Exactly.
That was the last thing to come out, that she's colicky, she's not latching well, motor system, you're not moving her head right, can't latch or nurse on one side. All of those things are those symptoms where that subluxation pattern was very chronic even early on. And some of the things match that, right? When you're measuring it, right? Her HRV, super low. So we get this question a lot in practice is, gosh, my baby's 9 weeks old, 9 days old, whatever. And you run an HRV, which is awesome with the Insight. You can run them on an ear clip. So you can get a baby's HRV reading right after they're born. And you look at this and you're like, why is your autonomic activity so low? Meaning, why is that power spectrum in your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system? Why doesn't that have the reserve, or why doesn't it have the energy that I would think it is? You're new here, right? We like to think of babies as they're perfect. Their skin's perfect. They smell good. You're like, you're perfect. You're coming out. But the nervous system wasn't. It was stressed and it was chronic already. And that had really weighed that down because, again, even 9 weeks plus all that time in development where she really struggled, that was a huge neurometric that she was struggling with.
For sure.
Let's look at it from the other side of it too, with Ellen. Ellen was a mom, and I love her example too, because it even goes further back than even a good way. And there's a lot of really interesting science with this.
Yeah. So with Ellen, she started with us at her first pregnancy during the 3rd trimester. And that's where, as chiropractors, a lot of times that's where we're getting moms, right? Maybe they have a breech baby or they just want to feel more comfortable. And then we're able to talk all things nervous system. They're like, oh my goodness, for my next pregnancy, we are starting from preconception. And it's awesome to see that story. But with Ellen, for her first pregnancy, she came to us during the 3rd trimester. She had been sick for so long, nausea, all of the things. She was super uncomfortable. She had a lot of reflux, heartburn. She also, before pregnancy, struggled with IBS, struggled with gallbladder things, all the things. Horrible digestion really was her main thing though. And then we also saw this because mom is passing her microbiome through during pregnancy. We also saw it in her daughter. And that's where her first pregnancy, her daughter, we saw colicky, tummy aches, and all of those things. And looking back at how mom does pass her microbiome, it's just crazy to see all of that stuff. And so now with Ellen, she started with us preconception. In this pregnancy, now she's in her almost 3rd trimester. And this pregnancy has been almost completely different for her. She did struggle with a little bit of morning sickness again. And then we boosted her adjustments and she said it got so much better. That's awesome. So that was just really cool to see how much chiropractic helped her and helped her be able to eat more foods. I mean, she was barely even eating throughout her pregnancies because her digestive system was hurting her so badly. So it was really cool to see those two sides of just her story. Yeah,
it's such a vicious cycle too. And obviously I fully respect the communication side of this from a chiropractor. Because if you're listening to this, that's a conversation. How do you have that with a mom who's 6 weeks in and you're like, you need to eat something. I can't eat anything. But we got to eat healthy. But this is the only thing that sounds good. So again, that's what's so important about going back before you go forward and saying, hey, let's help this nervous system get a good foundation, get a good launch point to get to that point, because you almost have to take your doctor hat off in that moment to say, it's going to be okay.
Yes.
We know right now that yes, this is maybe putting more stress in there, but we're not going to focus on that right now, because what's important is that we think positive through it, we work through it, and we get to the next point as good as we can.
And what's so cool is that this isn't the end, right? Pregnancy isn't the end. You have the baby and then we adjust the baby.
Yeah.
And that's what's so incredibly cool as well, of having that mom to mom conversation with your patients, or mom to dad, mom to doctor, is just being able to empower them and say, you're going to get through this. I know it's really hard right now. I know you can't eat anything. You give them suggestions or whatever, but the bottom line is you're going to have this baby and we're going to adjust this baby and you're going to get through it. I don't know anyone who's ever been pregnant forever. right? You're going to have your baby. Whether it's 9 months, whether it's 10 months, you go 42, 43 weeks, you're going to have your baby. And so just keeping that mindset with them as well of it's going to be okay. And just really be you're basically the only one who is empowering them through this, right? You're the doctor who sees them multiple times a week. Yes. You're the only one who sees them multiple times a week. So you have to empower these women and just make it known that they can do this.
Yeah. And you're also someone that's physically, tangibly giving them something that's helping them, right?
Yes.
We talk about an adjustment, obviously neuro-focused, helping the function of the body. It's helping them feel better. That's a huge step in it. And I love going back to BJ Palmer's analogy of health that he talks about, in all the green books and everything that are even back behind me.
Pull one out.
Right? I have the page bookmarked where I'm going to reference this. I do not. But he talks about health being a momentum, right?
Yes.
There's you can be you ask someone who's healthy and they're like, I'm healthy, right? There's no set point, right? Where you're oh, this is the determination if I'm healthy or not. It's do you have good momentum or do you have not good momentum?
Right.
And you can encourage parents that are under your care that yes, they have good momentum because their nervous systems are adaptable. And that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
So all these one-off struggles and problems and things like that, that's going to happen. We live in a sinful, crazy, bad world, right? But if you have momentum, you have the slack in the rope, you have the empty enough bucket to be able to handle that where things don't overflow with it. So use that momentum conversation too, because it can be very overwhelming when it's I know all these things, but what do I do about it?
Yes.
Right. And Ellen, gosh, she's, you mentioned it before here, how she's I'm literally going to do the research study myself. I'm going to compare my first pregnancy and this pregnancy. How many parents do that?
So many in our office, which is so cool to see. Our favorite stories at PWC are ones who come in with a perfect storm kid and they've been through all of this and they see how chiropractic impacts their child and they say to you, Dr. Ali or Dr. Matt, I'm ready to have another baby, but I want to do it different this time. Yeah. And that is I have goosebumps. Can you see him in the camera? I have goosebumps right now just talking about that.
Because it's cold outside.
Not because it's cold.
It's a balmy 50,
it really hits
right?
you. Yeah. No, but I do have goosebumps talking about that because it is just oh my goodness, this mom is going to get her redemptive birth. She's going to get that redemptive story. She's doing everything that she can to get it. And even if it still ends up, I talk to moms all the time, they're I'm not scared if it ends up in a C-section again. I am empowered and know so much more now that even if it does end in a C-section, I know that it'll be different this time because of my mindset, because of all I know, because of what I can advocate for in the hospital, because of the recovery, because of adjustments. And it's just so cool to watch their story completely change. And that's what we do as PX docs.
That's chiropractic there, right? It's life without fear, right? The title of that book of, that you dig into the life without fear of this could happen. No, I'm prepared for it. And that's what's so cool about this conversation, because you can take it to, all 40% of kids, all of them struggle with chronic symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Well, we know it's deeper than that as pediatric and family chiropractors. We know that it's deeper than just, okay, I'm going to be afraid of a symptom.
Yeah.
I want to have the confidence. I want to have the momentum. I want to have the adaptability and the reserve to say, here's what I have going forward. So that way, I'm not going to get feared into anything, later on. I know the choices I'm going to make. I'm in control of my own life. And how amazingly cool is that? Not just for healthcare, but for everything that they can accomplish. And so as we transition here to the, call it the application and answers part of this call, there's certain things that we can do to make the biggest impact, right? We can't always do everything when, a mom finds us at 36 weeks. Right. That's okay. We're not supposed to. You do your best and you forget the rest, right? But the answers for this is, you have to have something to look for. And we talk about chronicity, right? And we know what that chronicity is in babies. And so we have to help parents see that in practice. I know one of my favorite things and your favorite things to look at with a pregnant mom when they come in is their HRV scan, right? You look at HRV and immediately you have a metric that says, okay, how is your body handling the stress response from the environment with it? What are some other neurometrics that you look for, or even neurohistory metrics that you can pull out that are so key to look for with assessing that chronicity to say, here's where it is. Here's how we can help it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely HRV. If you are not taking heart rate variability in your office, we have grace for you, but you need to start tomorrow. It is so key. And I absolutely love that at PwC, we now take both mom and baby's HRV together right after birth, because we want to know, how are they co-regulating? How are they adapting with one another or taking on this world that this baby has just come earthside in? Another thing that we look for just with paperwork and things is we love to dive deep, right? As PX docs, we are always diving into the story. A lot of the time, some people are like, why does it matter if I was on birth control at 15? Or why does it matter that I had this struggle with my dad when I was in elementary school, or whatever it may be? But all of those definitely add up into what we call the perfect storm, even in fertility, perfect storm, even in that pregnancy and when baby is born.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. There's going to be keys in the history that are going to combine with those neurometrics to say, hey, this is an imprint of all of it. That's going to make an impact. And what that's going to lead you to next as a chiropractor to say, I need to care plan for this. How oftentimes have we seen it? Maybe it'd be a baby scans or heard a very, very short history where someone, maybe a parent doesn't want to give us a whole lot. We're like, wow, it doesn't really sound like there's a lot there, but there really is when you unpack this, right? Because the care plan that you have to use for chronicity is a lot different than we were taught as chiropractors. Like, let's be honest, right? Like when you come out of school, a lot of times it's the see how it goes care plan, where it's like, you know what? Well, if I adjust this baby and they make a good change, I'll see you next week or see you
once
in a couple of weeks, right? Like, don't do that. Like, we have to not be afraid to care plan for the chronicity. If we know that baby's at 9 weeks old and they have that history, that same history that Eva did, like, we've got to know that, hey, a 3, 4, 5 month care plan is absolutely appropriate for her, absolutely appropriate. And it's okay to start daily for those adjustments. Like the adjustments are designed to calm, balance, regulate the autonomic nervous system. That's what we talked about starting at the beginning, right? If you're balancing that nervous system, you're not going to overshoot or you're not going to do too much, right? You can always check that baby and be like, your autonomic system's balanced, right? Remember, it's a very gentle approach, but it's not a chiropractic structural only adjustment. We're trying to get to the nervous system there. And when you care plan for that, that's really where those miracles can happen.
And I know some of you out there, maybe you just got done with school or whatever it may be, and you're like, oh my goodness, daily adjustments, like that's crazy. That's kind of how I remember in our internship with PwC and looking at Dr. Matt and Dr. Tony just give these massive care plans and being like, oh my goodness, do they need that much? And then we go through the story and it's like, absolutely. And Miss Jackie always says, if you are unsure, add 12 more visits because it's like this baby, we have to get them out of this perfect storm that they're in.
And to be very, to be very detailed and granular with it, there's nothing more powerful than frequency for a mom at the beginning, not only neurologically, but just for a mom. If that baby is colicky all the time, they're not eating, they're not latching, they might be biting, so she doesn't feel great about anything. Like she's getting no sleep too. The worst thing you can do is be like, you know what, let's go 2 times a week. And then she gets one adjustment and it's like, oh my gosh, I had the best night of sleep ever. And then the next 3 and then the next 3 nights she doesn't. And she's like, can I just come the next day? Like they will tell you that. So when you go daily on these adjustments and you get them out of this major subluxation jam, yes, it's symptom based at first, right? We know it needs to go longer than that, but you get her out of that jam with that baby. And it's like, I can enjoy my pregnancy and enjoy my baby. And that's a huge piece of it too. That's going to create neural momentum going forward of, I can get some rest. I can do some laundry. I can take a shower. Like all these little things play and add up with it. So if you're contemplating frequency at the front end of your care plan, don't. Like moms will ask you for it. If you don't do it.
We've had so many moms and they're like, I don't want to go down. Can I please just stay on like 3 times a week or 4 times or daily or whatever? Because they're seeing that. They're able to take a shower. They're able to do laundry. They see the impact that neurologically focused chiropractic has on that autonomic nervous system.
and they are here for it, which is incredible. And this leads me to maybe our third key application to it is see them too.
Yeah, you have to adjust the moms. You have to adjust the dads. Co-regulation is so incredibly important. What that is that nervous systems, they're always intertwining with one another. And as babies, a lot of the times, those babies, they need their mom. That's why we do skin on skin. That's literally mom's nervous system helping regulate baby's nervous system. And we only get this baby for 5 minutes tops at an adjustment, right? But then they go back into a dysregulated nervous system home, a home full of nervous system dysregulation. No, we don't want to send them back to that. We want their entire family to get scanned and to get on a care plan.
Yeah, co-regulation's key. You can even see this in the HRVs that you do in your practice, how families, spouses, you'll graph in the same region just because that's kind of, call it the midline that you all kind of gravitate to. And so when you're going to gravitate that way together, you need to heal together too and come back. So see mom and dad too. And final question for you two, Dr. Ali, is, what's next, right? If you're hearing this, you've obviously, you care about seeing kids, you care about seeing families, and, you might be just coming out of school or newer in practice or even been in practice for a long time. And you've heard this kind of thing of like, well, with babies, it's about a lot more than adjusting, or it's about these things. It's about those things. It's about everything, right? But here we are saying it's just about adjusting, right? It's just about that nervous system. What is it about? Where do we fit into that?
Yeah, as PX docs, we love to draw a triangle. And the bottom base of the triangle is the autonomic nervous system. It has to be functioning and regulating and being able to adapt. After that, then you can start to build your triangle of all the little things. So I had a mom message me actually just yesterday about a tongue tie, and I'm thinking, okay, this is more than a tongue tie. She asked for tongue tie exercises, and I was like, all right, we have got to get down to, is this baby getting adjusted? How is their nervous system functioning? All of those things. So that's what we talked about first. And then once that baby's nervous system is regulated, is adaptable, now we're going to start to build our circle as chiropractors. Who are we going to be able to call? Is it a lactation consultant that we want on our team? Is it for our pregnancy patients? Who are our midwives? Who are our doulas? Who's your favorite pelvic floor PT? So you have to build. We always say like your foundation is the nervous system, but then you want to build a house, right? What are you going to build that house with? And it's those other providers to surround yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nervous system first, but when that nervous system's in a good place
and it's ready,
well, then you can add in those things without consequence, and they're actually going to build onto it. And so the house analogy is perfect because it's just project management, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to have Chip Gaines come in and demo after Joanna's started to decorate, right?
Exactly.
Like and do those things. There's got to be a sequence to it, and that's the word I'll use, and we use through PX a lot. Is there's got to be a neuro sequence. You have to focus on the nervous system first. And that's why we put so much incredible power on chiropractic as that piece of the puzzle. And not just one piece of the puzzle that's like, okay, well, I need this too, right? No, you need that first. That's that all important corner piece where you don't have that corner piece of the puzzle, you're screwed, right? Like you've got to have that piece to make everything else fit and work together. And so don't get lost on that sequence, chiropractors. Know that you have a role to quarterback these cases for these moms who are coming to you. And like the tongue tie example is perfect because they're coming to you at 3 months old and we've been told, hey, we need a tongue tie revision. We need PT. We probably need help with a lactation consultant.
We need a helmet. We got torticollis.
Helmet, torticollis, everything. And you're like, and then you see the HRV and it's tanked and you're like, you know what? Let's just get their nervous system good first.
And that is so calming to the parents too, because they're so overwhelmed with all of these different therapies. They don't know where to go to first. And you've probably built the trust with them already. So they come to you first and you're like, all right, let's pull back the layers, start with the nervous system first, and then we can start to rebuild that house.
So do babies really have chronic health challenges, Dr. Ali?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that, then we need to redo this.
I would vote yes. And you've heard a lot of the reasons why. in this podcast.
Yeah.
It starts earlier, it starts more often. There's more exhaustion in the world. And, that can be from a number of the 3 T's we talked about, but we would really encourage you, share this conversation that we had. We had it, doctor to doctor with you on this podcast, and with each other. But really share these same principles with your parents in practice. They want to hear this. They want to know this. I was not a chiropractor when I started to be a parent, and I would have loved this. You got to go the opposite direction, right? And
I was a chiropractor.
You're a chiropractor
when I was born.
You probably have a further sympathetic drift in your HRV because you're like, we got to make sure Goldie's perfect. I was blessed to not have that, where I was like, you know what? I'm just oblivious.
Yeah, being a mom and a doctor is the most stressful thing ever. So
that will be a podcast topic
to
come
a good one.
for sure.
Yeah.
Being a mom and a chiropractor. So look out for Dr. Allie with that. Anything else to add to finish up?
I don't think so. I thought this was super fun. I think we should do more of this.
We should do more topics. Yeah. So maybe send in your ideas.
Yeah. Vote for your next topic. We want to hear them.
We will do that. We love you guys.
Yes.
As you know, PX, we are all about helping kids and helping families with neurologically focused chiropractic. So if you just can't get enough of this, keep, subscribe to the podcast, listen to the podcast and do that. But check us out in the pediatric experience, for our Life Cert seminar that we do and partner with Life University for 60 hours of CEs. We really can go into topics like this there live and talk more about live adjusting and care planning and communication and all that. And just check us out there because we would love to have you and love to dig in more in helping more kids and families thrive.
Cool. See you guys next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.